The madness rolls on. We are at the second weekend of the NCAA tournament. We were just saying right before we got on, can't believe it's already Wednesday night. It feels like just last week we were getting ready for the marathon that was Thursday and Friday, and here we are again with awesome games. And I guess, Joe, to start it off, we'll talk about quickly like the theme, I guess, of the first weekend outside of St. John's kind of losing was a lot of chalk, a lot of the big favorites winning, not much Cinderella. What are your thoughts on that and kind of the complaints that we've seen out of that? Because in my eyes, it's like we've got awesome games this weekend. There's not one game on the schedule for Thursday or Friday that I'm like, that's a blowout. And if I see any of these teams win on Thursday or Friday, I'm like, oh, they're getting blown out Saturday or Sunday, no matter what. I think any of these teams worthy of cutting down the nets in San Antonio and winning it all, I wouldn't say that. But I could see any of these teams representing their region in the Final Four if they play their best game over these next 4 days.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a lot of people that not necessarily watching this show, because I feel like if you're watching this show, like if you're consuming a lot of college basketball content, you watch the sport, you understand. There's a lot of people that, only will watch a couple times a year, especially around this time of year, and say, oh, it was boring. There weren't a lot of Cinderellas. Because a lot of them, I wouldn't be shocked after those first 2 days if they kind of just tune out. Maybe they'll watch the national championship game. But with the volume of games decreasing, a lot of the casuals and stuff, and a lot of people that just, like to gamble, probably aren't watching the games. These tournaments happen from time to time. Like 2015 was very chalky back when, the undefeated Kentucky team lost to Wisconsin, who was also a one seed. You have tournaments like this. Like I was listening to a podcast and it was like 2015 and 2016, out of the teams that advanced the Sweet 16, only one team wasn't a power conference team, and that was Gonzaga. And Gonzaga is a power program. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it just is what it is. You're going to have years like this. You know what I mean? Because 2023, 2 years ago, when NIL was happening, when the portal was happening, people were saying NIL is the reason why all the little guys are actually catching up, because you had such a crazy tournament and you had FAU in the Final Four. You had San Diego State in the Final Four. You know what I mean? You had UConn, and people were complaining then about, oh, there were too many upsets. So, you can't have it both ways. People are going to complain no matter what. Do I wish some of the games are a little bit more competitive in the first weekend? Yes. But it happens. You know what I mean? You're going to have years like this. And like you said, Coyle, this is an incredible second weekend of the tournament for the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight games. We have awesome games right now, and we have the potential for even better ones on Saturday and Sunday. We have the potential, it might be chalky, but we could have all four one seeds in the Final Four. Like this year, Coyle, we've kind of talked about it all year. There's been a clear cut between the top of the sport and even the bottom of the sport. I think we were even talking about it a little bit when the bracket came out, like how good the top 4 or 5 seeds looked compared to the bottom, portion of those at-large bids. And it is what it is. Like I said, my one complaint was I wish the games were more competitive. I don't really care that we ended up getting a lot of chalk teams. Do I like rooting for the Cinderellas? Of course. Like, do I wish we would have had, Drake or McNeese in the second weekend? Yeah, I think that'd be cool. But also at the same time, you would have Houston playing McNeese if McNeese were to have beaten Purdue. And this isn't a shot against McNeese because there's a lot of teams that wouldn't be able to hang with Houston. I think that would be a snooze fest. So, I mean, I don't know. Like, you would have had Michigan State taking on Drake, right? Because, no, not Drake. Texas Tech would have been taking on Drake, Arkansas for the Elite Eight. That would have actually been fun. Okay. But besides that, like, you would have had these Cinderella teams. A lot of times, we see these blowouts in the next
Yeah.
weekend. Like, perfect example, St. Peter's going to the Elite Eight. That was an incredible run. But that Elite Eight game, I remember watching it at Lake, and it was almost from the tip, like this game is over. Like this is just a team that's gone so far, so much further than they expected. But I mean, it is what it is. I'm excited for the games this weekend. I'm still going to watch. We've been seeing it all over. It's been the most watched weekend ever, the first
Yep.
weekend, which I still don't understand because I saw it was like, oh, they averaged 9.3 million viewers, and it's like there has to be more than that. Maybe I guess that's averaging, you know what I mean? So it might have peaked and stuff at different times, but like I feel like more people watch March Madness, but not gonna complain. We have great games coming up. And the one thing that people can complain about, these bigger schools or bigger fan bases, the further they advance, the more they're gonna watch. Like, no offense to McNeese, but Purdue, like Purdue Houston in Indianapolis is going to be a sellout. It's going to be a very, well watched game. There's going to be a lot of Purdue fans who aren't going to be at the game watching the game. McNeese doesn't have a lot of fans. Like, I don't know. Like, the viewership would not have been that great. That would have been the
How
game
many
they put
people
on,
you
like,
think know where McNeese even is?
not many outside of like true. Even I think there's probably a lot of people that consider themselves college basketball fans that don't know where
Yeah.
McNeese is. So, you take the good with the bad. Like, I wish maybe one team made it? Yes. But they didn't, and it is what it is. We're still going to watch the games. We're still going to have fun watching them. So I think that's my whole spiel on that.
And I think too, when you're looking at the point spreads, if you're a believer and if that's indicative on how the game's going to go, the two biggest spreads aren't even double digits. They're both 9.5, and that's Duke and Auburn, who have been, I think, head and shoulders, everyone has said, kind of the best two teams. And they're playing Arizona and they're playing Michigan. Like, it's not like they're playing, like you said, McNeese or Drake. It's like these are two teams that have been looked at as so good throughout the season. But I could see on a good day, like Caleb Love goes out there and if he has 40 points and shocks Duke or Michigan, they've got the pieces to hang around and beat Auburn as well. So it's like even with the two largest spreads, I can still see an avenue for a potential upset. So I think we're in for some awesome basketball. And we started off on Thursday night in the East region. The highest, I believe I heard this will be the highest total if it sits at this in NCAA tournament history for the pregame total. Number 6 BYU versus number 2 Alabama, 7:09 tip on CBS. Bama is a 5.5 point favorite. Total all the way up at 175.5. Joseph, thoughts on this upcoming track meet between the Cougars and the Crimson Tide?
I think one, Bama fans are going to love this. After having to play St. Mary's, a team that really slows you down and
Mm-hmm.
frustrates you. Getting to watch their team really start running up and down the court again. I think this game is going to be very entertaining. I'm glad it's the first game tomorrow night. A game that's really gonna, you're going to be feeling like you're watching a tennis match going back and forth. That being said, though, I am going BYU to pull off the upset. I picked them to go to the
Wow.
Final Four in my bracket. I had them beating Bama in the Sweet 16. And even after the first weekend, like, I know Grant Nelson was banged up. I know St. Mary's is a team that slows you down. And I know, they didn't put in Nelson until Robert Morris had Bama on the ropes. But I'm not going to say that I was like really impressed with Alabama last weekend. Now, that also could have been the mental factor of like we're playing Robert Morris and St. Mary's. We're playing two non-power conference teams. We're playing in the SEC. Just get us to the next weekend. So I could look like a fool, and Bama could win this game by 20. But I think BYU is going to pull off this upset. They're a very good team. They like to run as well. Alabama, they match stylistically. They have the same. They're not going to make each other uncomfortable with their pace. Like, BYU is going to be able to keep up with Alabama when they try to run the court. That's why you see this total is so high, and that's why I'm actually ultimately going with BYU to pull off the upset and advance to the Elite Eight.
Yeah, that would be something. I could certainly see it happen, and I'm not saying it's to the extent of the Charleston, Alabama game from last year, but I think it's just BYU runs into a team that you want to beat us at our game, you're going to almost have to play perfect. Like, I just think Alabama has too many guys at the end of the day that they're just going to kind of wear them down. Could I see an avenue of an upset? For sure. I think you can always see an avenue of an upset when you're a team like Alabama that shoots so many threes, and they're not always the most efficient in that regard. But if Mark Sears goes out there and he goes 1 of 12 from 3 point range, BYU certainly is going to be hanging around. But BYU can do the same thing in their own right. They did it last year against Duquesne. I know it's a different team, but a lot of similar players, some similar players, but similar kind of coaching style as well. They're going to pace you, they're going to space you, and they're going to try to shoot a lot of threes. But they don't make them. You run into a hot team, you're going to find yourself home. But I heard something today. If you go to Torvik, the website, basically the analytic college basketball website, that you can sort these teams and kind of throughout the season, you can pick specific dates, and they can tell you who's been the best since X date to X date. Since February 11th, since the last time, since BYU basically started this 12-1 stretch that they're on, they're the third best team in the entire country. I think it's behind Duke and Houston are the two teams ahead of them. So pretty lofty praise there. When they've been at their best, they've been awesome. I think it's going to be a really fun first half, and I think it's going to be a really fun kind of 10 minutes of the second half. But I think you kind of start to see in that last 10 minutes, Bama kind of takes their toll on this BYU team a little bit. I just think they have too many guys, too deep, too talented. They're just going to wear this BYU team down a little bit too much, and I think pull away at the end. But it's going to be a hell of a game, an entertaining game for sure. I love the over, but I also really like Bama 5.5 to kind of close it out and wear it down BYU at the end. Give me Bama 95, BYU 85. So Bama minus 5.5 and the over 175.5 there. All right, the game I'm looking forward to, I think I just think it's the most fascinating. I think that there's the most storylines kind of around it. In the West region, number 4 Maryland versus number 1 Florida, 7:39 tip on TBS. Florida minus 6.5, over under 156.5. Florida has transformed themselves into a team that's looking like a potential powerhouse in the sport of college basketball. Kevin Willard has Maryland in the Sweet 16 for the first time, I believe, in almost a decade. Heavily rumored to be the next head coach at Villanova. And there's part of me wondering, like, does he wish Derek Queen missed that shot so he doesn't have to continue to deal with this stuff? Because it would be insane. I assume he hasn't signed a contract yet, but would it be insane if this Maryland team found their way to the Final Four and he's still like penciled in already to be the Villanova head coach? Like, there's just so many storylines around it. But Joe, I kind of want your opinion on this as well. Like, how many of these players like actually care that Kevin Willard like is potentially leaving? Like, they're a team that plays multiple seniors. Derek Queen's a one and done player. Like, how many of these guys would even be back next year to play for Kevin Willard? I really don't think it's affecting them. And Kevin Willard's basically kind of on the same page with them. Like, guys, let's just go out there and do this. This is all kind of our last run together. But Florida 6.5 point favorite, over under 156.5. Any chance the Terps pull off the upset?
I don't think so. And, not for the reason, Coyle, like you said it, you hit the nail right on the head. Like, and especially with how the transfer portal is nowadays, so many players can have great runs. They'll just hop in the portal to get more money, But like you said, this is a very senior laden team. I think that no matter what happens with the Nova job, I guess like you said, I don't really think they care too much because even the players that are on the bench, and maybe have some potential could go with him to Villanova. But that being said, I think Florida's going to win this game pretty comfortably. That game against UConn, I think, was a very good, I don't want to say wake up call because you're in the NCAA tournament. Like, it was a good test. Like, you survived. You just knocked out the back-to-back champs. You saw what it took, even though UConn talent wise shouldn't have even been on the same court as you. Because trust me, I've been to a lot of UConn games this year. That team was nowhere near as good as the last 2 years. Hurley kind of said, we went down like a champion. I think Florida kind of saw what it was like to be a championship level program. Winning that game, I think, is going to be very good for them. I think they're going to beat Maryland 81-70. I'm taking Florida minus the 6.5. I'm going under 156.5. I feel like it's a lot of points, even though Florida, is capable of putting up 80, 90, points with ease at times. I still think this Maryland team is good enough to kind of, I feel like this will be a game where, it's a 5-point game or less at the half. Then you'll kind of see Florida in the second half start to open it up a little bit and eventually pull away and win this one. Incredible season for Maryland. That was one of the craziest shots ever. Another team, we're talking about potential Cinderellas like Colorado State. If they were in this game, I would have taken Florida by 1,000,000 points. Like, it's not even a shot at Colorado State. Like, Florida's that good. And I do think Maryland will be able to kind of keep close early. Do have a long shot 75-1 ticket on them I placed back in the beginning of March, but they're not winning. Like, I'm not going to be an idiot. They're not winning the national championship. But it's been a great season. It's good to see Maryland back, Coyle. They're one of those programs I feel like, back when they were in the ACC, when Maryland is good, it feels like the sport is better. I know that's stupid to say. Like, they're one of those programs to me like, oh, Maryland was having a good year. Like, that is good for college basketball. And I really hope whether Willard stays or not, they're still going to, kind of stay towards the top of the sport. And it's good to see Maryland back in the Sweet 16 for the first time in a while.
Yeah, it's just I still find it weird, like, even being a person, attached to the Villanova program. It's just like, where you have Maryland and the rise that you're kind of on right now, why would you leave at Villanova? Because it's not the same Villanova that was 3 years ago. Sure, maybe you can flip it, but maybe he just wants to be at a school that the sole attention's on basketball, that basketball is just kind of the main focus. Maryland is trying to still make themselves into something on the football field. I don't really think that's going to happen. And the conference realignment with having to get past Ohio State, Oregon, and Michigan all now, you said Maryland. I think you could be a force in the Big Ten. You were second place in the conference this year. It's a puzzling move to me if he does wind up doing it, but maybe he's just trying to get some of the best leverage possibly ever. But this is a game that I don't think I'm going to touch live at the beginning. I think Maryland's going to not put as big of a scare that UConn did into Florida, but I think they're going to hang around and make it a game where you're able to get Florida live at a pretty good price. I think Florida is just a deeper team, and they just have more guys at the end of the day than Maryland. Maryland might be 5 for 5, like talented enough with them, but then when you kind of hit the bench and you hit some of these rotation pieces, I think Florida is more deep and is just going to wear down Maryland at the end of the day. I think you can kind of look at it and say Florida did that to UConn as well. And you said it at the beginning, Joe, is like you saw UConn and the scare that they put into Florida. You saw what it took to beat, a championship team even when they weren't at their best. I think that was a good thing for Florida because they didn't run through the SEC tournament, but they won those games pretty comfortably. Even the championship against Tennessee, it wasn't really a sweat at the end for Florida to have to kind of battle through that, fight some adversity. I think that was a good thing for them, and I think that's going to help them down the line. I really do like the under, though, of 156.5 in this one. I think Maryland, I just keep going back to their tired legs, the depth on this team. I think Florida's just going to kind of wear them down. And remember, the Florida-UConn game, I know a lot of people either won or lost a bet on that buzzer beater by McNeely, but that was a really low-scoring game throughout. Like, I think Florida – all the credit they get on offense. They can play some really good defense too. And I think this is one where they kind of make Maryland struggle and they have the size up in their front court to really battle them. So I'm going to take Florida to win and to cover by the hook, 74-67. But I really like the under of 156.5. That'll probably be my official play of the game for this one. All right, third game of the night, East Region, number 1, Duke, as they continue to roll on versus number 4, Arizona. Can Caleb Love take down the Dukies one last time? 9:39 tip on CBS. Duke, 9.5-point favorite here, over under 153.5. Joe, any chance Caleb Love pulls off another stunner?
I don't think so. One of two things is going to happen with Caleb. He's either going to start the game like 4 for 4 from 3. We're going to go to the first media timeout. It's going to be like Arizona is up like 17-6 or something like that. Or it's going to be the opposite where Duke comes out, flatlines them early, and then, late he'll hit a couple of threes when they're down 20 to make it like a 10-point game. And people, you're going to get the alert with the head exploding. Oh, get to, CBS now. Like, I think Duke's going to win this game pretty handily. I'm going to go Duke 85, Arizona 73. So I'll take Duke minus the 9.5. I'm going to go with the over here because the one thing with Caleb Love is, he will be chucking up shots. I can guarantee you that. I think there will be, it's going to be close just because of, Duke will shut Arizona down. But at the end of the day, just the more talented roster. And I'm going to go with the over here, 153.5, and Duke to move on to play BYU in the Elite Eight.
Yeah, our guys, GP and Matt Norlander were saying today, if they were just joking around, but they said if Caleb Love and Arizona beat Duke in this one, every Division I program around the country has to retire both Caleb Love's number 1 and number 2, like Jackie Robinson. That's how crazy of a performance. I think it would take an absolutely heroic performance, like I'm talking 40 to 45 points, to beat this Duke team. This Duke team has just been on such a roll, and people are like 9.5 for 1 versus 4. Like, have you not watched Duke? Like, they just dominate everyone in their path. They are eerily similar to UConn from the past 2 years. It's just like they don't really break a sweat. Like, maybe Baylor gave them a bit of a scare in the first 10 minutes of the game, but after that, it was over. And as you said, if Caleb Love starts out hot and the confidence is rolling, the sky's the limit for him. But if he starts out slow as well, he's going to continue to shoot and potentially shoot them out of the game. You just can't get me to bet against this Duke team right now. Maybe if you're afraid of the 9.5, wait and hope Caleb Love starts out hot and then kind of hop in on Duke. But I just think Duke, just like I said about Alabama and BYU and Florida and Maryland, it's just like these better teams, these 1 seeds, these 2 seeds, the deeper overall teams. I think at this point of the season, they just kind of, the depth matters the most, and they just kind of wear these teams down. So Duke and the sample size that they've had, 20-point wins, 30-point wins, you name it. Even in the ACC tournament, NCAA tournament, they just continue to roll on. I think they're going to cover again, but I'm going to take the under I think they have enough guys in the backcourt, enough disruptors to kind of slow down Caleb Love and limit his game. But very interested to watch him. I know I said Maryland, Florida's probably the matchup I'm looking forward to the most, but I just want to watch Caleb Love like one last time. If this is his last game, I hope he shoots it 35 times and gives us a good kind of parting gift there, because I don't know if we'll get to see him much in the NBA. He'll probably be that guy in the G League that averages like 25 points per game. But hopefully one last fun game in college here. But give me Duke 80-68. So Duke minus 9.5, under 153.5. And final game of the night, Joe, in the West region, number 10 Arkansas, our Cinderella of the tournament right now, versus number 3 Texas Tech. 10:09 on TBS. Texas Tech minus 5.5, over under 147.5. I know we'll give you your chance for your schedule rant. Why don't they do like a 5:39, like a 8 o'clock? I don't know. Balances out a little bit more. 10:09 on a Thursday.
Yeah, I feel like even if you just move the games up like half an hour each, like the East region,
Yeah.
you're playing in Newark. You can start the game at 6:39. Like I understand. You have people out west that it's gonna be a 4:09 tip for them for the early games. But they were doing this last week with the tournament. If they want to watch your games, they're going to watch your games at work. Like, it's not the end of the
Even if
world.
you're the college basketball fan, we start in the Big East on 6:30 on the weeknights.
Yeah, like I don't know. I feel like you
Sometimes
can
even
stack in
6. The one Nova game I went to this year, I think you went to one of the UConn games too. They started at 6 p.m.
yeah, they start some of those games really early, and it's not a problem during the regular season. Now, I understand you want to try to maximize viewership, but oh, you know what, Coyle? I just realized though the West region games are in San Francisco, so maybe
Mm-hmm.
that's why they're having the games kind of late. 'Cause I'm like 10:09 start, like that's 7 o'clock. But if you moved all the other games up, like it is a 4:39 start out in San Francisco. So if you want people in the stands too, but this is dumb because I feel like at the end of the day, the people going to these games might be fans of the teams. Also,
Yeah.
I don't know how many people in San Francisco are lining up to watch college basketball. Um,
Versus Razorbacks versus Red Raiders.
Yeah, that's you and me. Will be right in the front row, but I don't know how many people out in San Fran are going to be lining up for this game. But with that being said, and that rant aside, I'm going to go Texas Tech here, 69-68. I think it's going to be a low scoring game. I'm going to go Arkansas plus 5.5. Arkansas, two great wins playing St. John's and playing against Kansas. Beating a historic program in Kansas, a team with one of the best coaches in college basketball history with St. John's. Winning that game in Providence as well. It was essentially a road game for Arkansas. That is really impressive. That being said, I just think Texas Tech is the better team, and what they can do defensively, to me, is just so impressive. Grant McCaslin is an awesome hire for Texas Tech. If they can keep him around, which unless one of the big boy jobs comes around, I don't really see why he would leave Texas Tech. Um, Texas Tech could be a force to reckon with in the coming years for and when it comes to college basketball. So I'm going to go with Texas Tech here. Low scoring game, close. I just think Arkansas at the end of the day, St. John's defensively very good, but I think Texas Tech is a whole nother animal. I had Texas Tech beating St. John's to go to the Elite Eight in my bracket, so I'm sticking with the Red Raiders here to advance to the Elite Eight.
Yeah, and I saw some crazy Texas Tech alum like sold his $1 billion worth like oil business and plans on donating a lot of that to Texas Tech. So maybe sky is the limit for them as well. I'm going with the upset here. I like a lot of the favorites to win outright this weekend, but this one I'm going with the upset. I've been on this Arkansas team for a month and a half now. I've been on this Texas Tech team as well the whole year. I think this could be an awesome game too, one that comes down to the wire. But I keep going back to this thing with Arkansas. Like, I know you can throw out recruiting rankings, preseason rankings, everything, but those rankings are there for a reason. This team was built for a reason. You could look at all these teams, and I think besides Duke, had the argument that Arkansas, from top to bottom for their rotation guys, might be the most talented team of this bunch. They're a more talented team than Michigan State, more talented team than Auburn, more talented than Tennessee, Kentucky, Houston, and Purdue. Might not be better teams, like an overall team, but talent wise, they're right up there with everyone, and they're clicking right now. I think that they're playing their best basketball of the season for sure. There's another team that if you go back to Torvik, I bet you if you look over the past month, they're ranking very highly. They're just finding ways to win, and a team that I think is kind of playing with the chip on their shoulder and enjoying the ride. I've loved the quote that Calipari has now said a few times, but everyone threw us in the coffin, but they forgot to put the nails in, they basically gave us another chance at life, and here we are. And I think Arkansas is going to go to the Elite Eight and be a win away from the Final Four. I wouldn't be surprised if we see them in San Antonio. Talent-wise, they're right up there with just about everyone, and I love this Texas Tech team, but I'm not ruling out Arkansas at all. I'm going to take the Razorbacks to win this one 72-70. It's going to be Arkansas plus 5.5, under 147.5. All right, last four games. Friday night now, we go to the South region. Number 6, Ole Miss out of the SEC versus number 2, Michigan State. 7:09 tip on CBS. Sparty, only a 3.5-point favorite here, over under 143.5. Joe, Rebels, one of the surprise teams, I think, of the tournament. A lot of people said, oh, whether it's San Diego State or North Carolina, I'm definitely picking them to beat Ole Miss. And here Ole Miss is with only as a 3.5-point underdog to Michigan State.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, Coyle, when we were sitting there on Thursday in the book, when that game came on against North Carolina, I was very impressed with how quickly that game was over. Like, Ole Miss took control early, did not give it back, didn't let North Carolina get any momentum. Now, I know people are going to say, well, look how bad the ACC performed over the last weekend. Outside of Duke, all three of their teams bowed out in the round of 64. But to me, that was still an impressive win. And then you go and beat an Iowa State team, granted a little bit banged up, but still an impressive win nonetheless. You move on to 3-16 here. I just, at this point, I think Izzo's using black magic. I mean, we've said this, I've been saying this all kind of season long when we do these shows. I still don't believe in Sparty. They still can't shoot the three ball well. I know Benkert's going to laugh. Benkert's going to have his jokes as they keep, moving on here. And I think they're going to win and move on to the Elite Eight. But it's like, in this year of these dominant 1 seeds and, some really good 2 seeds, I'm like, how is Michigan State still here, still in that group? It makes no sense to me. But I am going with Michigan State 70, Ole Miss 65. I'm going to go as far as say they cover. So I think in terms of coaching, I still take Izzo over Beard. And I'm going to go with Sparty minus the 3.5 here. I'm going to go with the under 143.5. I think Sparty is in the Elite Eight. And I can already hear Benkert laughing at all of us as they have a chance to go to the Final Four.
Really like the under, Joe. I think that might be actually my favorite play of this weekend. I think Michigan State is really going to try and make this a half-court game and slow it down. Izzo said it a bunch throughout the season, and it goes back to what you're saying as well. But talent-wise, this isn't that talented of a team, and I think Ole Miss, especially the way that they've played through the first 2 tournament games, even in the SEC tournament, they had the win against Arkansas. I think they beat Arkansas, right, at the buzzer. Was that the game Padula won at the buzzer?
Yes.
Or was that against Auburn?
I think it was Arkansas.
Yeah, I think it was Arkansas. And then they had the really good game. They had a really good fight. I think that was against Auburn where they fell short. But they've been playing some really good basketball as well. And I think the pieces that they have, I think if they got into a shootout with Michigan State, that would be definitely in Ole Miss's favor. So I think this one is definitely played more so in the half court, but I do like Sparty to kind of pull it out at the end, pull something out of their behind. I'm going to go Michigan State 68-66. So Ole Miss plus 3.5, but really like that under of 143.5. Probably my favorite play of the weekend. All right, Midwest region, SEC matchup, round 3, number 3, Kentucky versus number 2, Tennessee, birth to the Elite Eight on the line. 7:39 tip on TBS. Tennessee, 4.5-point favorite despite being 0-2 on the season series this year. Over-under is 144.5.
I'm going to look like an idiot here, but I'm going to go with Tennessee here, 78-74. So I'll take Kentucky to cover that 4.5-point spread. And I'm going to go with the over 144.5, which is not really the best play with this Tennessee team because of how they are defensively. But I think Kentucky's going to be able to stay in this game with them. I know they swept them in the season series. That being said, though, I'm going with Tennessee here outright. I just think this team is better. Kentucky has they have a higher ceiling than Tennessee, but I think their floor is also lower than Tennessee's floor. And I think we're going to get a little bit of a cold Kentucky performance here. I think Tennessee's going to grind this one out and set up an Elite Eight matchup. We haven't gotten in that game yet, so I won't spoil my other pick. But I'm going to go with Tennessee here. I think Ziegler has a massive game. A game that you're going to look back, we'll be talking about in 5-10 years. Like, remember that Ziegler game against Kentucky? I think he's going to have a massive game. I'm going to definitely take his over in points. One of the perks of being in Connecticut, there aren't many for gambling wise, but I will definitely take Ziegler to have a great game here and advance the Vols to the Elite Eight.
Dream bet game for me the other night. Kobe Bryant 40 points in this game. I had the dream the other night. If he has 40 points, I would assume Kentucky's winning. He played awesome in that game against Illinois on Sunday, and this Kentucky team kind of reminds me of the Kentucky teams under Calipari that made runs in the NCAA tournament, where it's like, all right, they can score, they're talented, but they're not really good on defense. But over this last kind of month of the season, they've really figured it out. Lamont Butler back in the fold, not healthy. He's saying his shoulders falling off, but you can make an argument the best defensive guard. They have arguably the best defensive big in Amari Williams. It's a team that has bought in more on the defensive end, and they've always had the offensive talent. I just like them a lot better than this Tennessee team. Give me Lamont Butler, I think, even over Zagai Ziegler. Give me Amari Williams over any of the bigs on Tennessee, and I think they have the better shooter in Kobe Bryant over Chaz Lanier. Lanier might be the better overall scorer, but I just like this Kentucky team and the way that they've been playing. They're a team that I think has the underdog chip on their shoulder as well, like underdog to that Illinois team as a 6 seed, underdog to Tennessee after you already beaten them twice this year. Give us some respect, give us some credit. I think that they're going to kind of ride with that. And I like Kentucky to win yet again over Tennessee. Give me Kentucky 72, Tennessee 69. So Kentucky plus 4.5, and I will go under 144.5. All right, very fascinated about this one. South region, number 5, Michigan versus number 1, Auburn. 9:39 tip on CBS. Auburn minus 9.5. Total all the way up to 153.5 in this one. A bit of a high number there. Thoughts on this matchup, Joe? And does Michigan have a chance to pull off the upset?
No, I think we already got the how is Michigan doing this performance against A&M. A lot of us on Saturday were on A&M. That was one of those games. Seemed like A&M was firmly in control. I believe it was like 69-60 or 68, something like that. They were up, A&M was up big, and then all of a sudden Michigan came out of nowhere and they like got shot out of a cannon and closed out A&M, and here they are down in Atlanta. Um, that being said, though, I think Auburn is the much better team. I think they're going to win this game 83-71. I will pick Auburn minus 9.5. I don't know if I'll actually bet that on Friday. Depends on how many beers I got in me at that point at 9:39 on Friday night. But I think Auburn wins the game. I'm going to go with the over here. A number, I don't care how much alcohol you put in me, I'm staying away from. I'm not touching that total at all. I think Janai Broom is going to prove why he's the most skilled of all the big. I think he's better than Golden. Danny Wolf's a big boy too. I just think Janai Broom's going to have a great game. I think his athleticism is going to be enough to frustrate whether they put Golden on him, Wolf on him, whoever. I think he's going to have a pretty big game. I think Auburn's going to win this game in what will essentially be a home game, being in Atlanta. You're going to have a lot of Auburn fans there at the game. Even though Michigan does travel well, I think Auburn is going to get this one done and move on to the Elite Eight.
Yeah, this is one that I feel like out of all the matchups, I haven't seen anyone predict Michigan to upset this one. I love them to cover. I think that they've got the pieces to make this a game. Um, they've got the size inside with Danny Wolf, with Golden to throw at Broom. And Broom really struggled against Kalkbrenner. And Golden and Wolf are not the defenders that Kalkbrenner is, but still they've got the size to throw at them. And I think that's the biggest thing. And Michigan's played really well. Like they ran through the Big Ten tournament, won that. They beat UC San Diego, who everyone was piping up the entire time. And then they had an awesome second half. Like they're kind of giving not team of destiny vibes, but this team's hot and we don't want to mess with them type of vibes. So take with that what you will. I'm going to take Auburn to win, but I think this one comes down to the final wire. It might be free throws at the end to seal it or something, but I really like that plus 9.5 for Michigan. I'll go Auburn 78-75. So go under 153.5 as well. But I'm not going to be surprised if we're watching on Sunday afternoon, Michigan versus Michigan State for a chance to go to the Final Four. That'd be awesome. That'd be really cool. Would break up the 1 seeds, but still, I'm not going to be surprised if Michigan wins this game outright. It's another one. It's like, let's watch the first 10 minutes, and if Michigan's hanging around, maybe take a stab at them live as well, because I think that they've got the pieces and they've got the size to hang around in this game. So I like Michigan to cover, but I'll take Auburn to win. All right, final game of the Sweet 16, Midwest region, number 4 Purdue versus number 1 Houston. 10:09 tip on TBS. Houston 7.5 point favorite. Over under 132.5. I'll start us off on this one. I say Houston punks Purdue on Friday night, 70-60. So Houston minus 7.5, under 132.5. But I think we see full-fledged Houston in this one, suffocating defense. Braden Smith's a hell of a point guard, but he hasn't seen anything like this Houston backcourt on the defensive end. I think Houston's going to punk them from start to finish. 10 points might seem like a not that much for a punking, but I don't really think it's going to be Houston's offense doing the talking that much. I think their physicality, they've got the size, they got the bodies inside. I love Houston. If I get there for the survivor pick, Houston, I've been saving them for this matchup because I think that I loved Houston as long as they got past Gonzaga. I thought Houston would run through the rest of that region. I think that they punked this Purdue team, and I think we see Houston on Sunday afternoon with a chance to go to the Final Four playing, in my eyes, Kentucky.
Yeah, so I'm going Houston here as well to win. I think Purdue keeps it a little bit closer. I'm going 72-68 Houston. I could look like a fool because the one thing that does concern me, and it does sound silly, but Purdue did have to get through High Point and McNeese to get here.
Yeah.
Like, High Point, I think, pretty solid mid-major team, don't get me wrong, as was McNeese. But how are you going to look right off the bat when you're playing against two mid-major teams, even good ones? They do not compare to this Houston team. This Houston team, there is a reason why I picked them to go to the national championship game in my bracket. I think they get this one done. So I'm going with Houston 72, Purdue 68. I'll take Purdue 7.5. I'm going to go. I just put scores down. I guess that adds up to the over, covering by 7.5 points. I don't know if I'll take that over Friday night. But the one thing that does concern me, Coyle, and I definitely know I throw too much weight into where these games are being played. But the fact that this game is being played in Indianapolis is crazy. That is nuts. It is going to be a pro Purdue crowd. I'm curious to see how what the split's going to be. But I think Houston did kind of get screwed being in the Midwest rather than going out west for having to play this Purdue team in Indianapolis in the Sweet 16. So that is the only reason why I think Purdue keeps it close. I will say in terms of a race to 10, and I put that in quotes with Houston always because of how they defend, we might not get to 10 points until halfway through the first half, but I think Houston will get to 10 first. I think I'm definitely going to look into Houston first half spread. I think they're going to come out, hot. Purdue's going to, kind of the opposite of what I was saying with Arizona. I think Purdue is going to look very flustered, and you might see early on like a 17-5. Painter's already using his second timeout, and we're not even at the 12-minute mark yet. So I think Purdue will end up keeping it close. But like I said, I even know I put a little bit too much weight sometimes into where these games are being played.
All right, rapid fire. Our Elite Eight matchups. I have in the East, Bama versus Duke. I will go with Duke. You have BYU, Duke. Duke?
I'm going BYU. I had them going to the Final Four. I had them beating Duke, pulling off the upset. I really believe in this BYU team. I think they go to the Final Four where they will take on Houston in the Final Four.
Okay, so you have Houston over Tennessee. I will have Houston over Kentucky. So I have Houston versus Duke, my ones. That's from my original bracket as well. We go to the West. I have Arkansas playing. I have Arkansas playing Florida. Give me some fun. Give me Arkansas to the Final Four. You have Florida versus Texas Tech.
I had that in my bracket. I had Florida going to the national championship and winning. So I will go with Florida to advance out of the West.
And then the South, I have Michigan State versus Auburn. In my bracket, originally I had Michigan State. I think I'm actually going to flip on that one. I'm going to send Auburn. So I actually have a Auburn as the 1 versus Arkansas as the 10, Duke as the 1, Houston as the 1 for my Final Four. So it'd be Auburn versus Arkansas and Duke versus Houston.
If Cal, I have Auburn, Florida. If Cal gets to a Final Four and he beat Pitino on the way to get there, and Kentucky fans are out in the Sweet 16, you're going to have Kentucky, they're not going to know what to do. They're going to be like, because you can't get mad at Pope. Sweet 16 this year is a great year, from where you were. And especially there were points in the regular season where, I didn't think that highly of this Kentucky team. If Cal oh my God, that'd be so funny to see how Kentucky fans would try to spin zone that. They'd just be so mad. There would be at least one Kentucky fan being like, we made a mistake that's going to set this program back 10, 20 years. And I can't wait to see that take. if Arkansas were to get to the Final Four. But I
I
have,
mean,
what were we saying?
who do you got?
I have the 3-1 seeds. I have Auburn, Florida, Florida going to the national title game. I have Houston, BYU, Houston going to the national championship game where Florida will win. We'll obviously talk about the Final Four next week, though.
Yeah, me and Brace were saying yesterday, if Arkansas wins tomorrow night or Thursday night, you feel like Kentucky's gotta, so that they both have a chance to potentially meet up still in the title game. If you do an Arkansas Kentucky money line parlay plus 678,
I
attractive
might sprinkle that.
little attractive piece there. And also, if you think all the one seeds are going to go, it's plus 739. So basically, don't bet any of the games and just root that the one seeds win their next two matchups. It's something kind of intriguing
Not
as well
bad.
if you think all the ones are going to go. But all right, that'll do it for this episode, the Sweet 16 Elite Eight collab. And then, as you said, Joe, we'll be back next week, one final episode to break down the Final Four. Wednesday night next week. We'll be headed out of town Thursday, so it'll be Wednesday night. And then, yeah, hard to believe college basketball coming to an end, but week 0 will be here before we know it. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, as always, and we'll talk to you next week.